In almost every strip club in America, the dancers don't work for the club. They pay it. They are not employees. They don't earn a wage. They don't get a paycheck, a benefit, or an hourly rate. Instead, they hand the club a fee just for the right to walk through the door and step onto the stage. And on a slow night, a rainy Tuesday, a dead holiday weekend, a dancer can finish her shift having earned less than she paid to be there. She goes home owing money. This is one of the strangest labor arrangements in American business, and it sits at the heart of one of the most quietly profitable operations in any city. Because a strip club has figured out how to sell the same room twice, once to the men who come to watch, and once to the women they come to see. This is the economics of owning a strip club. Here's the first thing to understand. A strip club is not, at its core, an entertainment company. It is a real estate and liquor business wearing a red neon sign. Strip away the lights and the music, and what you actually have is a building, a liquor license, and a stage. The owner's job is not to entertain anyone. It is to fill that room with two things: paying customers and the performers those customers pay to see, and then to take a cut of absolutely everything that happens between them. And the genius, the almost ruthless genius of the model is who carries the risk. In a normal business, the owner hires staff, pays them a wage, and hopes enough customers show up to cover it. If it is a slow night, the owner eats the cost of those idle employees. A strip club has inverted that completely. Here, the workforce, the dancers, don't cost the owner a dollar. They pay him. If it is a slow night, it is the dancer who loses, not the club. Let's start with that fee because it is the piece that surprises people the most. To dance at a club, a performer pays what is called a house fee or a stage fee, a flat charge just to work that shift. It is rent essentially on a few square feet of stage and the right to be in the room. And it is not small. In a market like Las Vegas, that fee can run from around $40 for a quiet afternoon slot to $180 or more for a Friday or Saturday night in prime time. The busier and more lucrative the shift, the more the club charges her for the privilege of working it. Think about what that means. Before a single customer walks in, before the music even starts, the club has already been paid. If 20 dancers each pay a $100 house fee on a Saturday night, that is $2,000 in the owner's pocket. Pure profit with zero risk, collected from the very people most businesses would be paying. And this all rests on a single crucial classification. The dancer is an independent contractor, not an employee. That label is the load-bearing wall of the entire business. Because she is a contractor, the club does not owe her a wage, does not owe her overtime, does not owe her benefits, and does not carry her as a cost at all. Yet the club still gets to decide who dances and who doesn't, who is hired and who is cut. All the control of an employer, with none of the obligations. One analysis called it a startlingly efficient business model, and that is exactly what it is: labor that pays to show up. And it was not always this way. For much of the 20th century, dancers were paid employees, earning a wage from the club like any other worker on the floor. But somewhere in the boom of the 1980s and 90s, as the lap dance turned into the industry's main event, owners discovered something transformative. If they reclassified the dancers as independent contractors, they could stop paying them entirely and start charging them instead. In one quiet accounting move, the single biggest cost on the books, labor, didn't just disappear. It flipped into a source of revenue. The workforce went from something you paid to something that paid you. It is one of the most audacious cost inversions in the history of American business. But the house fee is only the first cut. The second one comes out of everything the dancer earns. On top of what she pays to walk in, a dancer typically has to tip out, to hand back a percentage of her night's earnings to the house and its staff. Every lap dance she sells, the club takes a slice. On a $25 dance, $5 to $10 can go straight back to the house. Then she tips the DJ who calls her to the stage. She tips the bouncers who keep the floor safe. She tips the house mom in the dressing room. By the time the night is over, a meaningful chunk of everything she made has been redistributed back to the very building she paid to enter. So follow the money for a single dance. A customer pays, say, $25. The dancer performs. But out of that 25, A piece goes to the house, a piece is owed in tip-outs, and only what is left is actually hers. The club took its cut of a transaction it did no physical work to provide. It simply owned the room where it happened. That is the purest form of a house edge outside of a casino. Now here is where the model becomes genuinely remarkable. The club is collecting from both sides of the room at once. On one side, the customers. They pay a cover charge just to get in, anywhere from $10 or $20 to $100 or more for a prime weekend night. Then they buy drinks, and this is where the real money lives. Just like a nightclub, the alcohol is the profit engine. A round that costs the club a few dollars sells for many times that. And in a room engineered to keep people spending, the drinks flow all night long. If the club can serve liquor, that liquor is very often its single largest source of income. And it is worth pausing on why the customer spends so freely, because it is the mirror image of the dancer's hustle. He is not really buying a drink or even a dance. He is buying attention, the undivided, flattering, carefully performed attention of someone whose entire job, for the length of a single song, is to make him feel like the most important man in the room. That feeling is engineered, it is expensive, and it is designed to be refilled again and again, one round and one dance at a time. The club sells alcohol to lower his guard and fantasy to open his wallet, and the two work together beautifully. And then there is the crown jewel, the VIP room, the champagne room, the private area behind the curtain, rented to the customer for a few $100s an hour, with drink prices marked up even higher than the floor. The club charges the customer for the room. The dancer earns her tips inside it and still owes the house its cut. The same square footage sold again at a premium. Let's actually do the math on a single Saturday night because it stacks up fast. Say 25 dancers each pay a $100 house fee. That is $2,500 before the doors even open. Add 300 customers paying a $20 cover, another $6,000. Now pour drinks all night at nightclub margins, rent out the VIP rooms by the hour, and skim a tip out from every dance on the floor. A busy club can clear tens of thousands of dollars in a single night, and a large chunk of that arrived before a single drink was poured, paid in by the dancers themselves. By now you might notice a pattern. The casino sells you the fantasy that you might win. The nightclub sells you the fantasy that you are somebody. The strip club sells you the fantasy that you are wanted. All three are, underneath, the exact same business. An expensively decorated room that sells a feeling by the hour and takes a guaranteed cut of every dollar chasing it. The strip club just went one step further than the other two. It figured out how to charge the performers themselves for the privilege of being the fantasy. So if the club is winning on both sides of the room, who exactly is absorbing the risk? The dancer, entirely. She is, on paper, running her own tiny business inside someone else's building. She pays her rent, the house fee, up front, whether or not the night turns out to be any good. She buys her own costumes, does her own marketing, brings her own hustle. If the club is packed and the customers are generous, she can make very good money. But if it is dead, bad weather, a slow season, too many dancers on the floor competing for too few wallets, she can pay her $100 house fee, tip out the staff, and walk out at the end of the night having lost money on the shift. The club faces none of that downside. Its fee was collected at the door. Picture her ledger for one slow shift. She pays $100 just to walk in. Over the night, she sells a few dances and makes, say, $140. But then come the tip outs, 15 to the DJ, 10 to the bouncers, 10 to the house mom, plus the house's cut of every dance she sold. By the time she has paid everyone she is required to pay, that 140 has shrunk to 80. And she started the night $100 in the hole. She goes home having worked a full shift on her feet to lose $20, while the club kept her fee, kept every tip out, and never for a single moment shared her risk. And this is exactly where the whole model has started to crack. Because that independent contractor label, the one holding up the entire structure, is, in a growing number of courtrooms, being ruled a lie. Here is the problem. To be a genuine independent contractor, you have to actually be independent, free to set your own hours, your own prices, your own terms. But strip clubs, over and over, do not treat dancers that way. They dictate the shifts she must work, the clothes she must wear, the prices she can charge, the way she must behave on the floor. That is not a contractor. That, legally, is an employee, and an employee is owed a minimum wage and cannot be charged a fee just to show up for work. Dancers have caught on, and they have been suing, and they have been winning. Class action lawsuits have swept the entire industry, with dancers arguing they were misclassified and are owed years of back pay. The verdicts have been brutal for club owners. One federal jury awarded a class of dancers around $4.5 million. A Florida case ended in a roughly $1.8 million verdict. At one Atlanta area club, dancers reportedly walked away with more than $21,000 each. Courts from New York to Florida all the way up to the federal appeals level have repeatedly ruled that these dancers were employees all along, which means every house fee they ever paid and every wage they never received is suddenly a liability sitting on the owner's books. So the very thing that made this business so efficient, a workforce that pays to work, is now the thing that can bankrupt it. The house fee that looked like free money can transform into millions of dollars of back pay claims the moment a court relabels the workforce. And that legal time bomb sits on top of a business that is already expensive and heavily constrained to run. A strip club is not a business you can open just anywhere. Adult entertainment is one of the most tightly regulated, heavily zoned industries in the entire country. Licenses are limited, hard to get, and often capped by the city, which ironically is part of what makes an existing club valuable. Scarcity. You cannot simply open a competitor across the street, so a club that already has its permits sits on a moat. But that same regulation means constant legal fees, compliance costs, and the ever-present risk of a license being challenged, restricted, or pulled entirely. This scarcity is why a well-located, fully licensed club can be worth a small fortune. Not for its furniture or its sound system, but for the piece of paper that lets it operate at all. In many cities, no new adult entertainment licenses are being issued, which means the existing ones are effectively a closed club with the doors bolted shut behind them. Buy one, and you are not just buying a business. You are buying a permit the city may never hand out again. That moat is real, and it is valuable. But it cuts both ways because the same authorities that shield you from competition can, with a single vote or a single well-placed complaint, tighten the rules, slash your hours, or threaten the very license your entire operation is built on. Then there is everything else. The building in a prime, visible, high-traffic location. The liquor license, which is expensive and slow to obtain. A standing army of security to keep a late-night, alcohol-fueled room safe and orderly. Insurance for a cash-heavy business where things can and do go wrong at 2 in the morning. Cleaning, sound, lighting, DJs, managers, the house mom, and the constant churn of talent. And because so much of it runs on cash, it is a business with 1,000 quiet ways for money to leak out the back door. So step back and ask the question this channel always asks. In this whole neon-lit machine, who actually walks away with the money? Not the dancer. She takes every ounce of the risk. She pays to work, tips out the house, buys her own everything, and can lose money on a bad night, all while being denied the wage a court increasingly says she was owed the entire time. The owner does far better. He collects from both sides of the room, fees from the dancers and cover and drinks and VIP rooms from the customers, and for years he did it while paying his single largest workforce nothing at all. In a good club, in a good market, with the lawsuits held at bay, that is a genuinely lucrative business. But the two safest players, as always, are the ones standing furthest from the stage. The landlord quietly collecting rent on a scarce, licensed, hard-to-replace location, no matter how any given night goes. And the liquor, the bottles marked up into the stratosphere, the true engine humming underneath all the theater and the lights. So, should you own a strip club? On paper, it is one of the most efficient business models ever devised. A room you get to sell twice, a workforce that pays you instead of the other way around, and alcohol margins stacked on top. But it is also a legal minefield that is actively going off. A model whose core trick, the pay-to-work dancer, is being dismantled lawsuit by lawsuit, turning yesterday's free money into tomorrow's back pay bill. Add heavy regulation, real reputational baggage, and the headaches of a cash business, and the glamour fades fast. Worth owning? Call it a 4 out of 10. The economics are seductive and the cash can be very real, but you are running a business built on a labor loophole that the courts are steadily closing in one of the most regulated corners of the entire economy, where the dancer takes the risk, the lawyers circle, and the landlord and the liquor company win no matter what happens on the floor. A strip club sells a fantasy of easy money, and more, the person it ends up selling that fantasy to the hardest is the owner. I'm Mogul Math. Pick a business. We'll do the math.